And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Blake. It's another wonderful day to talk college football. And I'm a little sad, though. I feel like we're not going to get to all the big games this week. I feel like there's so many games that we can still talk about.
Yeah, I really kind of leaned in today on some quote-unquote off-time into Tennessee, Mississippi State. I think that one's a little bit more intriguing than people are giving it credit for. There are a lot of games. But, Joe, we got three quality games that we'll talk about today. Notre Dame and Arkansas. Is this the last game for Sam Pittman? USC, Illinois. Washington, Ohio State. Oh, by the way, for the first time in 2 decades, there's a new head coach at Oklahoma State. Oh, by the way, why did John Mateer have to break his thumb? We got so many things we got to get to here. And there's so many great games that now we got to talk about Gundy getting fired on a Tuesday. Why didn't you do it during the weekend, during a bye week? Why'd you let him go all the way to Tuesday?
I have a take on that when we end up getting to that segment. The timing of it's a bit odd. And also, Kevin hopping in here saying that 15 minutes early, us starting 15 minutes early means we can cover all the big games. We're going early because we have to get to the 3 games today. And 2 of the craziest headlines that we could have gotten in week 5, one of the biggest names getting fired, plus one of the most important players in the Heisman race having an injury.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, apparently per the Mateer news, it looked like he broke his thumb in the first quarter. So Auburn, now you really have no excuses.
Yeah.
And what a dog John Mateer is for playing through it. And, we wish him all the best, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, Joe, you said it. We got a lot that we got to discuss. There's really no time to waste, so you know what it is. First off, Joe and I need to thank everybody who is in here. We are over the 20,000 subs. Congratulations, good sir. We have made it there. On our way to 50K. Just do us a favor. We come out here to do this to have fun, but this is also our passion and what we do for a living. Do us a favor. Send this to 10 of your buddies. Tell them, come look at these 2 dumb Italians talking about college football, and say, just do us a favor and subscribe. But thank you to all of you for helping us get to that 20,000 sub mark. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Also, let's get rolling here because we got lots to get to. Every episode of Ruffino and Joe is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Go over to FanDuel.com today and sign up. Use that discretionary money if you have it. If you don't, Joe and I advise not to go over there. But Joe, I've still yet to hit on my 20-game parlay on my $1. I'm going to post it this week. I'm going to do it. This is going to be my 20 list, but it's a lot of fun to be able to go over there and do it at FanDuel. By the way, Fernando Mendoza over at FanDuel leading the Heisman ticket. We might get to that at the end of the week here as well. But go to FanDuel if you want to place all of those bets. And if you have any further questions, go to FanDuel.com/RG for more. Joe, let's get to it here. Everyone do us a favor during the show, by the way. Hit the like and share. Hit that subscribe button as well. There's a new regime change in Oklahoma State, or at Oklahoma State. For the first time since 2001, Mike Gundy is not employed by Oklahoma State, Joe. And since 2005, there's a new head coach that is going to be taking over for the Cowboys. Joe, when you saw the news today of Gundy getting fired, what were your thoughts?
Well, it's obvious why he was fired. This team was a mess. They got completely smoked by Oregon. They were incompetent offensively, one of the worst teams in the Big 12 offensively. This upcoming week on FanDuel against Baylor, there are 21.5-point dogs. So if anyone wants to bet Sawyer Robertson to put up a lot of points against this Oklahoma State squad, there's a very good chance of him doing it. But Blake, regardless of how bad this team was at the current moment, I have to feel bothered by how this was handled. I have to feel really disenfranchised by the timing of this. We're talking about Mike Gundy, who very eccentric personality. He was a 2011 Big 12 champion with this team, 170-90 leading this team, 8 10-win seasons, only 2 losing records in the span that he was coaching this squad. I find it kind of disrespectful for a guy who's built up this Oklahoma State program and who's been the face of this Oklahoma State program that they fired him right now. They fired him after 4 weeks into the season. I understand that the wheels completely fell off here. This was not a good team. there's a legit shot that they go winless or have one win this year. They're very bad, Blake.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, if you didn't have faith that they were going to get it done this season, you should have let them go during last offseason. This is oddly disrespectful to me for a guy that has built up your program and has made it nationally relevant for most of the time that he was there.
I feel like that things started going downhill when things started heating up around him politically. And I'm not going down that rabbit hole because that's not us. Mm-hmm. I do think things started heating up for him, and the decline technically I felt like started there. I think Gundy got, look, there are people that have done that, like Bruce Pearl, who still had success. Gundy did some things and said some things that I think from the 2021-2022 season, things kind of started dwindling down for him. They couldn't recruit at a high level. They're the level that they were actually doing. Joe, but he fell behind the times, even in some of the political stuff that he talked about. And listen, I don't care either which way, whether you love what he said or hate what he said. I don't care. But they couldn't recruit. And then they didn't get involved and really embrace what the new age of college football was. It's not just a Gundy thing. But you got to go back, and you said that it was mismanaged. Joe, it was mismanaged during the offseason when they tried to make him take a pay cut instead of just ripping the Band-Aid off of a 3-9 season. Right? Like, this is completely mismanaged. By the way, you played on Thursday, Friday night, whatever it was this past week versus Tulsa, and lost. And then you fire him on a Tuesday, the day that college kids come back to practice. So we talk about Gundy, but you're right. The mismanagement of this entire situation is completely insane. Joe, they've had 2 head coaches since 2005. Actually, since 2004. Les Miles, of all people, and Mike Gundy. I think he deserved the level of respect to play it out and then do it at the end of the year. Ripping off the Band-Aid now does, though, make some sense, even when the timing. But how you've mismanaged this entire situation starts for me to beg the question, are you going to mismanage this hiring that you have to do? Now, I know that Zach Robinson, the Falcons OC, is someone that's going to get a lot of pub here, someone who's an Oklahoma State guy. He's one of the bigger names. Does it get you involved with guys like Golish at South Florida? I don't know. But here's the bottom line truth if you're Oklahoma State. You will not be relevant until you start doing things like what Texas Tech just did. Hey, Texas Tech can't get over the hump. What do they do? Joe, they spent there was reported in the offseason, $25 million. Jordan fades back. Swish, and that's the game, Your Honor. I mean, that's what you have to do. The fact that they don't and wouldn't do that is going to be a crux for them. Joe, they got embarrassed on national television by Tulsa. And
everybody was talking about it.
Everybody was talking about it. It's going to be interesting to see where they go. But, Joe, I got to be real with you. He was 3-9 last year, and they're 1-2 right now. He's 4-11 in the last 15 games. He did need to be fired.
Obviously.
We go through all of that and talk about this mismanagement, and the ADs should be embarrassed how they manage this thing. However, this was a crapshoot, and it was going downhill very fast.
So that part I don't disagree with. I'm on the same page with you that, yeah, this team fell apart. And it's crazy to think 2 years ago they were in the Big 12 championship game against Texas, and you had a Doak Walker award-winning running back. Like the transition is nuts. But if you were so
by the way, Ollie Gordon was the preseason Heisman favorite.
Yeah,
if you remember.
It's crazy the transition, but when you're mentioning here the performance they had last year, they were a joke last year, and they were somehow more of a joke to start this season. Part of it, I think, was his mismanagement. I think also this athletic department, I wonder how financially committed they are, which you just brought up is a really good question. I'm still sticking behind. I'm really frustrated by the disservice to him for what he's been for this team. He's one of the, especially probably the only coach that I can think of that didn't opt to try and jump ship to go somewhere else. Jimmy Johnson left to go Miami. Les Miles left to go to LSU. You have all of these guys.
All better programs.
left for bigger and better programs. And the one man who stuck around and, again, kept your program extremely relevant, you embarrass him this way.
Look,
I think it's so unfair to him.
Gundy's name was brought up a lot in the LSU search of Brian Kelly.
Yeah, and
a lot.
Even weirder to consider that this is where it came down. I think he's probably going to be in a broadcast booth, and I feel like the way that he mailed it in coaching-wise, that maybe he's one of these guys that gets into broadcasting and just sticks there until he retires.
The Big 12 has one opportunity. Instead of putting Dave Portnoy up there, with all due respect, I'm going to be careful. Okay. Portnoy is not the Pat McAfee that you need. Mike Gundy is.
I wonder if OAN would consider broadcasting games.
Good Lord.
I wonder if they'd put him into a... Maybe they could give him his own show. Who knows? Maybe that's what can happen. Blake, I will say this, though. I wonder what happens now with Oklahoma State. Is there suddenly a aggressive financial commitment? Because we just watched Virginia Tech do that, where they fired Brent Pry, and then a week later they announced, I think, a $47 million boost to their athletic budget. I don't know how much of that is going to go towards revenue sharing and NIL and whatnot. But still, is there a chance here, knowing that there are rich alumni for Oklahoma State, is there maybe a side
money? They got T-Boone Pickens. They got money.
Right. Are there maybe folks that were opting not to be more committed financially because they were sick of Gundy? Who knows what it was? We're not privy to those situations, but do we see this sudden financial commitment to the new guy? Or if they keep trying to do the same crap, it's going to produce the same results.
Look, I'll tell you this. I mean, Brian Kelly went to a podium just as a coach. He's not the only one that did this. Brent Venables did this as well. Who had to go in the portal and do a lot of things. And, it's funny, Joe, the other coach that did this was Mike Norvell. So the three teams that are having success, all three of those coaches gave $1 million. Lincoln Riley did it too, by the way. All of those coaches gave $1 million of their own money that they were getting paid to go into the portal because they all understood one thing. Listen, $1 million is $1 million. But if I don't win, I'm going to get fired. And these coaches, whether you like them, love them, or hate them, they're narcissistic enough to not want to lose. They want to be around football. That's what brought them there. And I think it's funny, Joe. Look, you can say and do whatever you want to think about the portal and NIL and all that. Look at the teams that revamped themselves this year and how you can. But, Joe, the problem was, even though they were in the Big 12 title game not too long ago, the problem is I don't think today's society and the players that he was trying to recruit understood his message. And that ultimately bit him in the ass. I mean, who wants to go to play Oklahoma State under Gundy? No, kids were not going. Joe, they were in the mid-70s, mid-80s in recruiting. What are we doing? Like, you can't do that.
It's not good enough.
No, not at all. Not at all. I guess we do need to stay in the same state of Oklahoma, though.
Yes. This was shocking news.
Very shocking. Before we get to that, Elk says, heard that Jim Knowles already asked for a raise this week.
Yes, Elks, you dropped this in the Discord. I didn't get a chance to really go back and forth. Today was mess with the Jackson Dart stuff, but we were briefly talking about in the Discord. If you want to sign up for the Discord, it's $4.99 to become a member and get access. I mean, I get it, but why would Knowles? I don't think Knowles.
I'm not buying that job. I'm not buying that.
I would buy it, but I'd buy that he would maybe do this, but I really don't think
being the DC of Penn State is better than being the head coach of Oklahoma State.
Yeah, he might have just seen if he could get a little bit extra money. It doesn't mean he's serious about doing it. If I was his agent, I would do it too.
I do think this Zach Robinson thing with Atlanta is starting to get pretty interesting already.
I know one person, my roommate, who would be more than happy to watch Zach Robinson leave the Atlanta Falcons to go there.
Don't think Zach Robinson's the problem.
Oh, don't tell that to Sean. Sean will take your head off if you think that.
Ask Sean what a backside tackle does to a three tech on opposite side zone. And if he can tell me, then we'll have.
He's walked me through that in our living room before. You don't understand. That's not going to do anything to him.
All right, good. All right. Joe, we say in the state of Oklahoma, as it was announced today, that John Mateer broke his thumb on his throwing hand in the first quarter versus Auburn. Absolutely devastating news for the Sooners. I hate this because John Mateer is a great player. And you don't want to see great players on any team ever go down. But Joey's got to have surgery, and Brent Venables went to the podium today and said, listen, this was not only the best thing for his short-term future, but for his long-term future in college football. Your thoughts on the John Mateer news and him possibly missing up to a month, if not more?
Well, first of all, this is pretty nuts because Mateer was a guy who was considered very favorably in the Heisman conversation. And as you mentioned earlier on FanDuel now, Mendoza is at the top and Dante Moore, as well as Jeremiah Smith at the top three names on FanDuel. So this completely changes the landscape for the Heisman. You lose him for multiple weeks. That is going to take a lot out of it. If he played really well against Texas, that's ammo for the national landscape to completely rally around him. Blake, my first thought with this, though, on the Oklahoma specific angle, we're about to find out how good Oklahoma really is. We're going to find out how legit this team is, because a lot of their offensive line inconsistencies that we have brought up as a concern, it was mitigated by the fact that he was quite literally the best improviser in college football. It was on the same level how Caleb Williams, when he won the Heisman, that USC offensive line was not very good. But he made that offensive line statistically look better than it was because he was so freaking good at evading pressure. I know that having Michael Hawkins Jr. step in and him having played last year makes this transition a little bit easier. You're not throwing in some random kid and hoping that it works out. He's played. But Blake, after the bye week in Kent State, if he's out for the 3 weeks, maybe 4 that is projected for this, Texas and South Carolina are those next 2 games. And if the offensive line plays bad against that Texas O-line or D-line and that South Carolina D-line, it could be some pretty tough sledding for the offense.
It could. Now, again, I think that they can clearly win. I would assume for them to win against Kent State on Saturday, or excuse me, they're on a bye week. But coming into Kent State, but he's having surgery tomorrow. So, look, they said it could be late October from what Pete Thamel reported. Hypothetically speaking, let's just say it's late October, okay? You have Texas in the Red River Shootout. It's the only thing that I'm going to call it. Then you go to South Carolina, which then puts you in a situation where you're going up against Ole Miss. Joe, you got to go 2-1. You got to go 2-1. You can't – look, this is very unfortunate, but quite honestly – the people who have the best news today is the state of Texas, the University of Texas. By the way, sidebar, how many backups are they going to face? Because there's a strong chance they don't see Lagway again, and there's a strong chance clearly that they're not going to face off against John Mateer. Hawkins, it's going to be interesting because I think he can do some really good things, but he's thrown into a situation where he's not going to have a good run game. John Mateer was that run game, and now he's got to become that. Again, let's see how this starts playing out. You're on a bye week, and maybe he can come back by Texas. Who knows what actually happens here? I mean, timetables are just in and of themselves goofy sometimes when you have these type of surgeries. Like I remember Tua having ankle surgery and people saying he wouldn't play against LSU in 2019, and all of a sudden he had a tightrope surgery and he was back out there. So we'll see. But this is devastating for the entire sport. And that's the thing that I think, screw Oklahoma's record or what they will go, screw anything about what it means for the Heisman or playoff. This sucks because he's been on 2 big stages, against Auburn and against Michigan, and quite frankly, led their offense down in critical moments to win football games. And by the way, what an outright dog John Mateer is for breaking his thumb in the first quarter and still playing on his throwing hand.
Well, yeah, I mean, seriously, that's actually a really good point of how
I take him with the number 1 pick because of that shit. When you have that high leverage of a situation and you break your thumb and you want Joe, you know exactly what happened. He probably got shot up at halftime, numbed the pain, played through it, and the sumbitch swole up when the game was over. And that Joe, it doesn't matter. When he comes back, that entire locker room is going to be behind him.
Yeah.
That sends you on another. That builds culture. Unfortunately, he's got to be out for it. What a dog! What an outright dog John Mateer is.
I just wonder, and I agree with all that stuff. I know it's perceived by Oklahoma fans that we hate the team, we hate him. Like,
no, we don't hate it. It's just when we say you're going 6-6 and you go 6-6, you can't say that we hate you.
Yeah, right. And we've been a little wary of some of the weaknesses that you've had. And I think that now when you have a guy who was so good that was able to mitigate those issues and outperform them and perform well despite of them, and then also the battle through the injury that you talked about, I wonder how this team will look when they don't have him.
Yeah.
When he comes back is the biggest obvious question mark with this entire thing, because is the 3 weeks that was floated out there, are those a real 3 weeks? Is it a situation where you have a guy who you're trying to mislead your opponents? You're trying to make it seem like we could get him back. It's kind of like with Cam Rising.
Well, he's going to be questionable in that SEC
Right.
report for Texas.
Right. It's kind of like with Cam Rising and how they did that every single week. There's no injury reports, or there are injury reports now. There's no injury reserve like there is in the NFL. You don't have to. You're not required to put someone on the IR or anything. You can play that stupid game of every single week saying he might come back, he's not playing right before kickoff.
Yeah,
this could be worse than it's being led on.
Ask Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, seriously.
He played Austin Simmons one snap in both games because he put him as questionable, and he's going to get away with it. So just a heads up. Joe, listen, I still think that they can beat Texas even with this, because Texas, listen, if you're going to struggle with UTEP, and you can't score on UTEP, I have a team that just came off of 10 sacks. So that game is still intriguing. Listen, John Mateer played. I'm taking Texas. I'm taking Oklahoma. I'm not taking Texas. Texas has shown me nothing, absolutely nothing offensively that gives me confidence in them. I still think that they can go into that game and make it reasonable. And Joe, what Texas offense shows up in a couple of weeks? We'll figure all that out and talk about it when it's time. Right. But the bottom line is that, listen, if you're Oklahoma or you're an Oklahoma fan, Joe, the bottom line remains this defense has got to step up more. R. Mason Thomas, what you did in the second half, you got to do it for the next month, brother, unfortunately. I'll say this, though. I don't think Hawkins was a bad player. I think he did some really good things last year. No, he's electric with his legs. He's got an electric arm. He can make some serious throws, so I don't think they're incompetent. Obviously, you're just losing somebody that we thought could be a Heisman Trophy contender.
Yeah, again, the main theme here is we're going to find out how good they are, because even if they lose to Texas, I think if they go toe-to-toe with Texas, that to me ends up being some proof that they're going to outperform the issues and that they're better than we thought that they were coming into the year.
Well, listen, last thing I'd say, you technically are in Dallas, okay, for the Texas game. We all know that.
Yep.
Joe, Oklahoma fans, you better be ready for this. They're going to snip at this in the comments. You're going to Columbia in Cocktober.
Yeah, I forgot it's Cocktober.
Brother, all right. Do me a favor, Oklahoma fans. Go ask everybody in the SEC, not named South Carolina, what happens in the month of October when you go on the road to South Carolina at night.
That's a fact.
Shit. Ask Hendon Hooker. Ask Tennessee.
Seriously.
So, shit's getting spicy. Hold on. Let me just say this. I talked to a coordinator in the SEC today. They play Oklahoma this year. And he goes, I wish it was against us. Why? Come on. They just, they're kind of making a joke there, but it is what it is. All right. Joe, Notre Dame versus Arkansas this week. Arkansas coming off of devastating loss to Memphis. Notre Dame looking good against Purdue. When you look at this game, Notre Dame going up against its second SEC opponent this year. Your thoughts going into the game?
On FanDuel, Notre Dame's favored by 4.5 points on the road. Over-under is set at 64.5. I might take the over on FanDuel because of the fact that both these defenses have been quite abysmal.
Yep.
Blake, I got to be very honest with you as a Notre Dame fan, and I think that a lot of realist Notre Dame fans share this perception. I don't want to face a coach when they are staring down a potential firing. It is the last thing that you want to do. That is the first most important thing to talk about. I get that they lost to Memphis last week, and that was an embarrassing loss. Memphis is a quality G5 team, but it's not a game that they should have lost. They blew a lead. They literally fumbled it away. It was kind of almost like what Florida did, where they gave up the big run and then they fumbled the ball. Just all these silly, calamitous mistakes that cost them. Mm-hmm. They are a team in disarray, but they're also a team with one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the country in Taylen Green. And your defense right now is 132nd in havoc rate. You are not getting after the quarterback. You are not generating penetration the way that you need to be. For a quarterback like this that has gone over 100 yards rushing multiple times this year, had 115 against Ole Miss, Notre Dame fans need to be ready. At that same thought, though, this is and should be a game. Notre Dame has to lose this game. This is Notre Dame's game to lose, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. It's their game to lose. They have to make the mistakes to cost them in this game. They have to play pork and tane. They have to make a bunch of mistakes to cost them on offense. They should win this game, Blake, but I hate the circumstance of what they're potentially stepping into.
Well, listen, I'm just going to tell you, does Taylen Green make bad decisions? Like against Memphis? Yes. Does he make some ill-advised throws? Yes. Joe, he's making some elite throws too. He's escaping the pocket at a pretty elite level. That Ole Miss game, and listen, Notre Dame is better than Ole Miss defensively. No one's trying to compare. But listen, I'm getting ready for Ole Miss on Sunday because the team that I cover is playing Ole Miss this week. And Joe, I'm like, brother, that's an NFL throw for receivers that I just don't think are going to play at the next level. And I'm like, that is a dime. Now he's going to make bad decisions. And Notre Dame, you're right, Joe. It's the first thing I wrote down. You cannot shoot yourselves in the foot because Arkansas will. Ask Memphis and ask Ole Miss. They will shoot their own selves in the foot if you give them time. Joe, they can run on you and they can score. And this is going to be hard to stop. I'm just telling you, you stay in man coverage and you don't know what to do in zone, Bobby P and Taylen Green will eat you alive.
And Omega Blake.
Joe, I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm talking a lot about Omega Blake tonight in the next show. Think about this. PFF. Omega Blake has 12 receptions over the middle of the field, averaging 21.5 yards per catch.
That is a recipe for disaster for this Notre Dame secondary.
Bingo. But here's the truth. I think Arkansas has enough skill and physicality with their two really physical backs that can present problems. However, they can't tackle to save their life. They're 83rd in the country in total defense. They couldn't tackle against Memphis or Ole Miss. Joe, they're 74th in the country in passing yards allowed. They have continuously in these games not been able to make a stop over and over and over again. Ole Miss with Chambliss was able to push the ball down the field as a first-time start in the SEC. I think Notre Dame just needs to play their game and limit the mistakes, and they will be fine. This defense, Joe, to be frank with you, allows way too many explosive plays. They're second to last in the SEC in explosive play rate, but I go to this and say I thought that they had kind of somewhat gotten better over the last couple of weeks in the second half, limiting some things on third down and on the third quarter and fourth quarter. But Joe, they're giving up 28 points in the first half to Ole Miss. And I don't think that Ole Miss and you are in the same situation here. Defensively, you got to take it right at them because they are not going to be able to stop it. I turn that around, though, and say if you start getting in a shootout with them, it's a recipe for disaster, and that play starts getting loud, it's a recipe for disaster. Joe, Notre Dame's 130th in the country in passing yards allowed. You played two really good opponents, and let's not act like you hadn't. The thing is I do think Arkansas can keep this game close early, but Notre Dame's depth and physicality is going to win this in the second half, and that's where I lean in on it. But Denbrock has got to play a little bit of time of possession and wear this defense out that does not have depth.
Yeah. Again, I really think that Notre Dame wins this game just because Arkansas, you're coming off of this loss, and the same problems have plagued this team under Sam Pittman. There's a reason why he's probably going to get fired really soon. He's probably going to be out the door, and Petrino, who's trying to push to get the interim tag, is doing what he's doing after the loss they had. You don't lose a game like that to Memphis if you are a well-rounded team. You usually have some sort of lack of attention to detail in certain areas. This is not a Notre Dame or the Illinois loss that they suffered this year. This is you lost to Memphis because you blew a lead that you should not have, and you made a bunch of silly mistakes. I think you mentioned there, Arkansas's defensive woes are why Notre Dame should feel pretty solid in this. They're really struggling at stopping explosive plays in the run game. And you're facing off of a 3 deep. They haven't played Anais Williams much, but Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love are two of the most explosive running backs in the country. And they are constantly generating big plays when they're given the opportunity to. The first game against Miami was a little slow, and it's impacted their stats so far, but they have been picking up speed as they've been a lot more deliberate about getting them the football. So, Blake, I think that Notre Dame is going to be fine here. But the real important narrative to talk about, how effectively you win this game and how your defense plays, this is an important test for proving that you're getting better. You already failed the test last week against Purdue. You failed that test because you gave up 30 points and you gave up a bunch of first half points. Can you lock down and focus in this situation and prevent Taylen Green from cooking you?
Not only did you give up 30 points, but I do think Arkansas is better than Purdue, right, offensively. Joe, here's the thing and why I think Notre Dame is going to run away with it in the second half. Against Memphis and Ole Miss, they gave up 290 yards against against Memphis, and 118 yards rushing against Ole Miss. 204 yards per game the last 2 games that Arkansas has played. You're feeding into the strength of what Notre Dame wants to do. Again, I think it's a little close early, and I think Notre Dame starts separating because I think they're going to run the ball right down their throat in the second half. I would take Notre Dame. What was the over-under again? You said 4.5, right, on FanDuel?
The spread's 4.5. 64.5 is the over-under.
I'm not going over-under. Give me Notre Dame in the 4.5.
Take the over. I would, if this game ends up being like 45-30, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be the slightest bit shocked.
Oh, I wouldn't be shocked either. But I do wonder if Notre Dame plays a little bit of a different style here because of how bad Arkansas is at stopping the run.
Yeah, but Blake, we've been talking about this for weeks. Oh, hey, is Notre Dame going to play a different style? No, okay, they're just going to do the same crap over and over again, and they're just going to. Blake, I'm telling you right now, I wish Chris Ash stepped up in this battle and really was aggressive and sent a bunch of pressure. Notre Dame is one of the worst teams, as I mentioned, in generating pressures on opposing quarterbacks. They barely have any sacks on the year. They had 1 going into the Purdue game. They're not doing a good job of it. They're going to play the same off coverage, and we're going to watch Omega Blake have a bunch of big plays again.
Joe,
I need to see something different.
Half of it, he's got 24 catches. Half of them are over the middle of the field, and he's going for 21.5 yards per catch. By the way, are you worried at all on containing Taylen Green running the football? Because Ole Miss did not have an answer. And then Lane goes in the postgame, and he's like, look, to be frank with you, Pete Golding literally threw everything in the kitchen sink at him to stop him and contain him, and we couldn't do it.
Well, so here's the thing. I don't think containing – I know this is probably going to bite me in the ass saying this. I don't think containing Taylen Green will be an issue for Notre Dame. It's a hard task, of course. But Marcel Reed only had 37 yards rushing against Notre Dame. And the reason why they played well against Reed is that they are still fundamentally sound and they have really good athletes on the edge. So you've got Boubacar Traore, you've got Bryce Young, you have good athletes, and you've got really fast linebackers. They have arguably the most athletic, if not a top 5 most athletic linebacker core in all of college football, maybe second or third to Ohio State and Georgia. I think that that's where they don't have any issues per se. Where they probably have issues is him on designed runs and then overcommitting to try and slowing him down, that they're giving up big plays to Omega Blake and the rest of these pretty quality receivers, underrated receivers that they have.
Let me just say this. Last thing I'll say on this game. Listen to your boy. Mm-hmm. I've lived this in my entire life. Joe, that place is going to be hostile now. If they're in a game, even at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, that place is going to be hostile as shit because they always are in big, high-profile games.
Well, wait. The only thing I'd push back at, they went into Texas A&M last year and they won. I don't know if it's like.
Get it. No. A&M ain't. No, you don't understand. Tennessee level shit happens.
I'm not discounting the fervor of the stadium. I'm sure the fans are very, very passionate. I'm just saying that this Notre Dame team's been in difficult settings before.
I get it. Let that be a 1-score game in the fourth quarter and watch that moonshine magic start happening on your ass.
Right. All right.
I'm telling you, do not make fun or poke fun at moonshine magic. You will bite. Speaking from experience, it will bite you in the ass. All right. Moonshine magic. That's getting clipped. Washington versus Ohio State. Big Ten matchup here. Joe, the Washington Huskies coming off a couple of 50-plus offensive blowouts and performances. Ohio State, the reigning national champion, going into Seattle. Your thoughts going into the game?
Ohio State favored 8.5 points on FanDuel. Over-under is at 52.5, also on FanDuel.
Give me the over.
Honestly, I'm actually thinking about doing that. Blake, I don't have any worries about Ohio State in this game. I think that they're going to be fine, that they're going to win the ball game because they're so athletic defensively. And we saw what they did to Arch Manning in that first game. They fly all over the field. They've just got so much talent. And we are watching Matt Patricia turn this defense into a top 3 unit in college football. But we do need to have the conversation of what they're stepping into. Traveling to Washington, it's one of the most underrated places to play in college football in terms of difficulty because of where it is. The travel distance, it's not easy. I think one thing that has to start here, in order to win this game confidently and to keep Washington at arm's distance, you have to be prepared to play great contain against DeMond Williams. He is so similar to Kyler Murray. So similar. He is small. He is annoyingly shifty. He is going to slip away from you, even if you feel like you've played the right degree of contain. You've done everything right. He has had, in each of their first 3 games, 225 yards passing and 600 yards rushing. They've been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And defensively, they've also been really good. 62.7 rush yards per game allowed, 2.4 yards per carry. It's worth noting in Ohio State's game against Texas, because the other games were walkovers, they didn't top 2.5 yards per carry on the ground. That needs to be something that they're successful in. Blake, I think Ohio State's going to be fine, but there's a chance that Washington hangs around. There is a legit shot that Washington hangs around because of what Williams and Jonah Coleman and Denzel Boston bring to the table.
Sorry, the SEC schedule just got released, and LSU is going to have to go back to Ole Miss in back-to-back seasons. And that's why Sankey gets so much shit, because you got to go back. That's so stupid. All right. All year long, Joe, I have gone with nothing but chalk. And every single week, pretty much I've been picking the favorite in every one of those games. Tonight is not that night that I start changing up. Just kidding. I am. The Huskies are going to find a way to upset Ohio State this week. You book it. The 3-headed monster of Williams, Muhammad, and Coleman are going to find a way. They're 9th in the country in rushing. They're 9th in the country in defending the run, and that place is going to be hostile. I'm going with the upset.
Are you serious right now?
I am serious, and I'm doing this to piss off one of our good listeners in Elks. So let me have my moment. I think that the Huskies are going to find a way to upset Ohio State this week. I think they're the extension of Williams and with this running game with Coleman and Muhammad is going to really give them problems. I absolutely love Boston, their receiver. I think that they've done some really good things defensively. I want to see Julian Sayin go on the road in a hostile environment and win. I am very much willing to come in here and admit when I'm wrong. Ohio State fans, when I pick against you before, you blew the team out. So you should feel really good about me picking them. I think this Washington team might be a little bit of a sleeper. I really do. 3 weeks ago, I sent you a text. What was that text about?
And you had Washington.
It was about Washington.
You were negative about Washington, though.
I was not negative about Washington.
I'll find that text.
You told me that I was a psychopath for watching in Washington football 11 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yes.
I'm not. I am a psychopath. All right. In all honesty, before I piss Elks off and he has a stroke, I do think this one's going to be very close. I really do, because I really do love.
Wait, are you actually saying Washington's pulling off?
I think
I'm going to committing to that. Okay.
I am committing to it. I'm going with Washington because, again, I look, something in my gut says this one's going to be close, and watch them get blown out. Just watch them get blown out. Something to me feels like that this Washington team has a little bit of an edge. Joe, they scored 70 points, 59 points. Blake, who's it against? Well, you better go watch those games. They're running down people's throats, and Joe, they are physical as shit. I'm telling you, you cannot go in here lollygagging with them, and if you don't keep contained on Williams, it's going to be a problem.
They have one of the most explosive run games, passing attacks, and just overall one of the best adjusted, actually the best, second best adjusted EPA per play in all of college football. I am not discounting the talent and the quality of this Washington team. And I said this. Okay, Washington fans, I've been a supporter of you guys. I'm a supporter of this current team. I like the Jedd Fisch hire, all of those things. I really thought that Washington was capable of becoming a 9-3 team this year. All of those things I'm on the same page on. Jonah Coleman's exceeding my expectations. He has been better since he leaned down. And Denzel Boston is a guy that I was unsure of coming into this year. And he is completely mossing guys and making some really big plays. But Blake, this is not the game that Ohio State gets upset. It's just not. And I get that we're seeing a lot of production from this Washington team, and they're throwing up some crazy totals. But I thought that the Washington State game, where that game was close before Washington ripped off the 28-point fourth quarter, all that stuff. Before that, this game was oddly close. The fact that they gave up 24 points to a Washington State team that scored 10 against North Texas, and their largest point total this year was 36 against San Diego State. That Washington State team is awful. It's tragically bad. They almost lost to Idaho, and I love Idaho. I support Idaho. Me and my roommate are going to the University of Idaho for a football game this year. They are a great FCS team. They almost lost to Idaho. That game, understandably, Apple Cup, it's an important game. I have fears that this defense has not been challenged. And when they got a little bit more challenged by a really awful Washington State offense, they gave up plays that they should not have. And I think that this is a game where you see some really significant production in the run game, and they start to get that rolling. The one area that I am curious on, no one has been able to really slow down Carnell Tate, Brandon Innis, Jeremiah Smith, these tall, physical, well-rounded receivers. This is a very unique matchup with Ephesians Prysock and with DeCardio Davis being 6'2.5 plus. I think they're both listed at 6'4", but their NFL measurements were a little bit underneath that. I do wonder if the size and the physicality is able to maybe slow down Ohio State. But Blake, I can't get there with you. I think this game gets close. I am not going upset, though. I don't think that this is the game that they get upset.
God, they're going to be so mad at me.
They are. I'm going to title this video Ohio State will get upset by Washington.
All right. You bring up getting back to a little bit level-headedness here. Mm-hmm. The Washington secondary, see the Washington State game, Joe, it was a blowout, and then you got some other guys going in there, and they're giving up some points. I get what you're saying. The problem is this is not the wide receiver unit to go up against to continue to have problems in your secondary. They're 62nd in the country in passing yards allowed per game. And I'm with you there. And listen, I do when Ohio State wins, if they win, it's going to come off that receiving core because I do think this Washington secondary, who was number 1 in the country last year in passing yards allowed, now down to 62nd, there's going to be issues, and there looks like that there's a lot of confusion in the back end in their safety room. I'll give you that. And that's not a good recipe. I do wonder what Julian Sayin does look like going on the road in a first real hostile environment situation.
It's a fair question.
I am being a little trollish with the upset, but I just, for whatever reason, feel that Washington's going to be able to keep this one close because of a good running game. Now, I do wonder if Patricia, to your point that you brought up earlier that I thought was good, he got after Arch Manning. But I think that Williams, Joe, from what I've seen from him, this kid is highly athletic. And if you do not contain him, he gives you a different ability than I think that they've seen in quite some time. I'm trying to think of a quarterback that they've seen with this high level of athletic ability. And I think of Arch maybe, but he's not Arch isn't as athletic as Williams is. So that does scare me. The reason that I picked it was because on the road, Julian Sayin, quarterback for the first time on the road against a hostile environment, great game. That's what I'm leaning on. The problem in all of my theory is that secondary looks lost for Washington. Very lost. And this is probably the best wide receiver core in the country without an argument. And I think that they'll be able to eat there. Washington's got to control the clock and control time. I say that to say this too. Fisch has come up with some very goofy-ass wins that nobody predicted that they could do it. I'm just going to take a shot here, and he better not prove me wrong because I will get off this Washington bandwagon if they do it.
I think you present good.
Please. Let's go.
I hate you for doing this, by the way, because you disrespected them so much back when they were in the Pac-12, and I was the only one supporting them.
Coleman and Muhammad.
Washington fans, before you get mad at me, please remember the man who is to my left on the screen, technically, and how he spoke about your program during the national championship game. I wasn't
wrong in, by the way. You ultimately it came to roost.
I was still a believer. I don't think it's wrong though to say that if there's an unexpected loss this week, this could be it. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Listen,
I support Ohio State at the current moment.
Their physicality. I'm going to say this, and Texas fans, if they see this video, is going to be pissed. Joe, this is the most physical rushing attack that they've seen all year. Without a question. Coleman is a dog. And listen, an upset would be crazy. And I know I'm being kind of trollish here. But at the same time, there's a lot of me that looks at this and says, shit. Joe, they're moving human beings up front at a serious level. And so, again, when you're able to do that, and they haven't played the level of Ohio State, and I get that. But the way that they've been doing it against sub-level opponents is otherworldly. Go watch what they're doing along the offensive line. And if that physical running game gets going, this one can be close. I will say this, too. When I talk about Ohio State and I talk about their rushing attack, statistically speaking, they have not been bad at all. So when I go down and I look at rushing yards or rushing defense just in general, I look at Ohio State and I look at the top couple of teams. I'm like, well, where is Ohio State? Well, they're not in the top 10. Okay, then I look in the top 20. Well, they're not in the top 20. Okay, so what's been the problem? Joe, they're 41st in the country in rushing yards allowed. You play Texas, and I get it. But you have also played some no-name teams here too. I think that they're a little leaky. I do think that there's some leaks that can be found there in that Ohio State front seven.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I think that this linebacker core that they have is fast and physical. I think Caden Curry has been a huge boost for them when they needed to find somebody for that D tackle room to really boost their squad. So again, I'm not afraid to sit here and say that if there is an upset this week, this one makes the most sense, but I don't think that it's going to happen. I think that the chance is less than 10%.
We'll see. We'll see. No, give me 49.2%. All right. Joe, USC versus Illinois. USC making a lot of noise over the last couple of weeks of how efficient they've been offensively, while Illinois is coming off a really devastating loss versus Indiana. When you look at this game, you think of what?
USC, by the way, 6.5-point favorite on FanDuel, over 59.5 also on FanDuel for this matchup. Blake, I'm really excited for this game because USC has been operating in the shadows in a way. You got a lot of these late night games. Nobody really knows what they've been up to, but they've been slowly climbing. And if you've been tracking and paying attention, you know that this USC team looks different. And the way that they look different is they've got a lot of really talented safeties, and they've got a very underrated, impactful, actually underrated is not even a good word because they lead the country in sacks at the current moment, a disruptive defensive line. Going into a matchup against Illinois that has given up 16 sacks through 4 games, and they had a ton of issues moving opposing defensive lines thus far, and especially against Indiana, this is a spot for USC to set the tone. It's not going to be as sexy as of a ranked win as I think some thought it was going to be from the preseason because of how bad they got smoked by Indiana, but this still is a quality team. It is still a challenge to have to travel from USC to Illinois. They're apparently traveling on Thursday this week to give themselves a little bit of a boost and a little bit of an advantage, but it is still going to be difficult in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that this team has shown that they are worthy of being ranked highly and that they could be one of the best Big Ten teams. My last part with this, Illinois is screwed because of the injuries that they suffered in their secondary. Xavier Scott is going to be out for most of the season, and they've got like 4 or 5 other guys that are dealing with injuries. Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, elite athletes, premier receivers are going to cause problems.
And I think Lane's going this week, right? Like, I think he's pretty.
I believe it's Tuesday when we're taping this, so there's always kind of hard to find clarity on that stuff. But I like the idea, Blake, of USC covering that 6.5-point spread on FanDuel.
I do too. And listen, here's the thing. I think Maiava has been better than Caleb Williams in this system because of just how efficient this offense is moving the football. Joe, when we talked about Caleb Williams, me and you had, I don't want to say complete knockdown, drag out arguments, but we had disagreements. I felt like Caleb got outside of the offense in that final year. Maiava comes in after taking over from Miller Moss, and he's playing with inside the system. The thing that's been so intriguing to me is even against bad opponents the last couple of years, they haven't really had the ability to run the football. They're 11th in the country in total offense. They're 12th in the country in passing offense. Oh, by the way, they're top 10 in the country in rushing offense. They're dominating all over the place. And, Joe, I look at this situation and say to myself, have they fixed some things and gotten more physical up front? Maiava's been good in the run game. They've just dominated offensively and against all of their opponents in all 3 levels. I think, like you said, Lemon and Lane are going to be able to find ways. I think McCray's finding ways. They're tight end. Their running game's been highly efficient. They look like what I think Lincoln felt that their offense would look like at USC moving forward. But, Joe, I got to be real with you. I already assumed that a Lincoln Riley offense was going to be able to put up yards and points. They're first in the country in sacks. USC, let me repeat what I just said. A Lincoln Riley defense through 4 weeks is number 1 in the country in sacks. What just happened to Luke Altmeyer last week against Indiana? He got obliterated. They could not protect him worth a damn. And this team in a second year with their new DC is just not the team to have struggles in pass pro offensively. Joe, I think Altmeyer is going to be running for his life. They have 16 sacks. They're getting 4 sacks per game. You could not do this against an Indiana front seven, which who knows what Indiana really is. I still think in the back of my mind, look, you blew out Illinois, but what are you going to be moving forward? But I look at USC and I think, okay, well, Indiana made a statement. Does this front seven make a statement for USC this week too? Joe, they were bad. Altmeyer was under pressure and getting hit all night. And you're going up against a team that's number one in the country in sacks, which is so wild to think about with USC after coming off of the Alex Grinch era.
I know, and this is why I've been so bullish on D'Anton Lynn, and I think that
it's been so good. Joe,
it frustrates
Broyles Award. I think
he should be in the conversation. He should be in the conversation for how much of a transformation they've had. They're getting so much better, and they're deficient in a couple of areas that they could be stronger in. But to see guys like Anthony Lucas play to their potential, and I've been a big Kamari Ramsey fan as a prospect for the upcoming draft. I think that's a first-round kid. The one area that has been a little troubling for USC as it was
that's secondary.
It's more specific than that because they've got really good safety play. Their corners haven't been great. But here's the thing. We're not going to be talking about that until later on. I don't think that Illinois is the team that's going to really challenge and stress this this corner room for USC. They're 57th in EPA per dropback. They're fine. Altmeyer, as you said, is running for his life. I think that there's ways for them to survive defensively because they're going to get after Altmeyer so quickly because that Illinois offensive line is so bad. This all comes down to me, man, the disparity between Illinois' offense not living up to the expectations that we thought we had for them in the preseason and how much USC has outplayed their expectations defensively because their D-line's been so good.
Yeah, look, that secondary, for what it's worth, is 88th in the country in passing yards allowed. 88th. 88th. You talk about the corner play, Joe. If Altmeyer does get time, things could get a little interesting. How are you number one in the country in sacks, but 88th in the country in passing yards allowed? How is that even possible? It just goes to prove that your secondary is not being great at all. And you said, to be specific, let's talk about corner. Well, then, Joe, it's been horrendous. I just don't think Illinois is the team to test that at all. Right. I really don't. And I think Altmeyer, look, I felt bad for Luke Altmeyer last week, to be real with you. And I think a lot of the same is going to happen here. And whether it does, whether it doesn't, I don't know. What I do know is this USC team is trending. And I think a lot of people, because of what's happened through the first 4 weeks, have not really gotten a lot of eyes on them. Joe, they run the football at a highly, highly effective rate. And I think that has been – and really stopping the run too, their play up front has been the most different. We want to talk about with Lincoln, the quarterback play. We want to talk about receiver play. They look different up front. And if that's the level of play that they're going to get up front, that's what's going to make them more of a contender than any time that they were in the last couple of years.
Absolutely. And I think that ultimately this is like a real big narrative play game. This is one of those games where they get to prove and to show that they're trending upward. And we talked about in the preseason how USC, they don't necessarily have like an easy schedule, but they've got a lot of favorable matchups. And it looks even more favorable with the game that they have coming up against Notre Dame because Notre Dame's problems are stopping explosive passing attacks. And USC is currently, to this point, the number one team in EPA per dropback. They are incredibly, incredibly explosive. I think another area, just one last thought from me on this. They also, one of the things that's been talked about by Lincoln Riley and something that's hurt them a little bit, they've had a lot of penalties. They've had a lot of silly miscues with penalties. I think that's part of the reason why the Michigan State game ends up being as close as it was. Illinois is not the team to make mistakes and to have those penalties. They definitely need to be cleaner.
They do. And listen, you keep having those penalties, that's what's going to get you beat. It will get you beat fast. But listen, I do think for what it's worth, USC, regardless of what happens this week or moving forward, I feel like right now that they're moving in the right direction, and that's all that you can really ask for. All right. Couple of super chats here. Elks with a $5 super chat says, Gundy to ESPN, get Desmond Howard off my TV. Dude is an idiot. Whedon and Blackman Next, Okie State head coach Dana.
I don't think Justin Blackman's available at the current moment.
Yeah,
I don't know what Brandon Whedon is. Brandon Whedon selling insurance? What is he doing right now?
I really don't know, but I think Blackman got a.
Yeah, he's kind of a sad.
Yeah,
sad story.
I don't think that. I do think Cliff Kingsbury would be interesting. I just don't know if Cliff wants to leave.
I think that Cliff, if he leaves, he takes a head coaching job in the NFL. I don't think that he would want to leave to go to OK State. I just don't think that he would.
And to be real with you, again, like, why would you leave as the OC of the Commanders with Daniels to go be the head? You would have to get a lot of assurances. You would have to get a lot of assurances. I just don't think that that's him. The NFL changes people, man. Dick Buck says, if you got the discretionary income, then put some money on. I will.
Yeah, going over to FanDuel. I actually wouldn't mind taking, and I might when we do our picks this week, taking Washington to cover because it's a big spread, 8.5 points, a lot of points.
It's a lot of points. I knew I was going to get that fan base riled up, but it is what it is. I am taking Washington win outright, so I don't need the points. But I'm going to take them anyway. Alex with a $2 super chat says Ole Miss is beating Rudy Poo LSU offense. Blake,
she's just retaliating right now.
Well, to his point, I mean, LSU needs to show that they're capable offensively. I am not the person that's going to hide from what they do and don't do well. He's not wrong. They're going. Well, he is wrong. I do think LSU figures it out, but I don't know what LSU is offensively.
Right, and we've talked about this. This is going to be a really effective determining test for them.
They got to be average. If they're average, Joe, they're in the playoff. Because if they beat Ole Miss and they got A&M at home, they got South Carolina at home, you got to go on the road to Bama and Oklahoma. Then fine. I mean, you start feeling really good about their playoff chances here. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Yep. But I know what else is trying to do here. Marshall Child says Auburn at A&M is the 5th best game this weekend according to K4 ratings. Watchability. Any quick thoughts on the game?
Well, so I think we're going to do this game on tomorrow's show. So we won't go crazy deep, but I agree that it's got a lot of intrigue. I'm mostly intrigued by the fact that they're both each other's worst matchup in the sense that Auburn's rushing attack can be very explosive. It wasn't as good as it could have been because of bad play calling against Oklahoma, and Texas A&M can't stop the run. They are just atrocious. Yeah, they're atrocious at stopping the run. And then inversely, we saw some pretty explosive plays from the Oklahoma passing attack when they needed to generate it because the weakness for Auburn's defense is their secondary. So there's an opportunity there as well.
I got to be real with you. Well, we can wait on it. My gut reaction just to getting the question, I'm going A&M because until I got to see Auburn stop them. And quite frankly, I got to see Auburn get a win when it matters. Look,
Hughes slips up too much.
Way too much. And listen, John Mateer injury, the bad calls, Joe, they had 3 times that they could have hit Coleman in the end zone for touchdowns. I mean, that's just horrible play. That's just horrible play all around. All right. Well, we went early, Joe, and we still I guess we
still went late. You would have been late going to your show if we hadn't gone early.
We'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Picks, power rankings, and all the above. Until then, we'll see y'all soon. Peace.